What's up everyone, this is FPSticks, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing all of the information I feel that you need in order to master sacrificial swaps. So if you don't know what sacrificial swaps are, stay tuned, I'm going to cover it very early on in this video, but this is a technique that you really should start implementing into your gameplay if you want to drastically improve your performance in Go Battle League. A lot of the examples and things that I'm going to be talking about today in today's video might seem fairly advanced. So if some of this stuff seems extremely advanced, we are in season 7 of Go Battle League right now, and the pros, some of these top battlers are implementing strategies like this, and so the sooner that you can be aware of these techniques and how to master them, the better you're going to be at your own gameplay. So I'm going to be covering not only different ways to perform sacrificial swaps, but also how you can attempt to prevent your opponent performing a sacrificial swap. So a lot of time went into this video, so if you do appreciate this content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But let's jump right into this video. All right, we have a PowerPoint presentation once again, so you know that this is official content here. So what are sacrificial swaps? Oftentimes they're referred to as sac swaps as well, just abbreviating sacrificial. Essentially what this is swapping to catch a charge move on a different Pokemon than intended, and the whole goal of this is to transfer the super effective damage or strong damage to a neutral or resisted damage matchup. So for example, and I'll show lots of examples throughout this video, but say you're in with a water type in the lead and your opponent has a grass type in the lead, you can, if you want to stay in that for a little bit and attempt to catch their grass type charge move on a different Pokemon that wouldn't hit for super effective, that would be executing a sacrificial swap. Essentially swapping your Pokemon right at the moment that your opponent is throwing their charge move in attempts to catch that energy on a different Pokemon. And this is great because it wastes your opponent's energy as well. So in order to sack, you must know your counts. You absolutely must know your counts. Don't just play by feel, because if you know your counts, you're going to know exactly how much energy your opponent has, and this is extremely important for being able to execute these like perfect sacrificial swaps. You have to like 100% know how much energy your opponent has. So you must know your move counts and energy management. You need to understand that each opponent may play differently, and each opponent most likely will play differently. So some opponents might throw right when they have the energy, some opponents might overfarm, so just be aware that everyone's going to play a little bit differently, and so there's no like super clean cut way to always 100% pull off a sacrificial swap, especially since people are getting more and more skilled as the seasons progress, and so people aren't always throwing right when they get their energy. Sometimes it takes a little bit of random intuition. Sometimes you're able to pull off a sac swap at a completely random time, and it just so happens that it works out. Those are always really cool when those happen, but sometimes it's just totally random. And this is kind of important here. Only sac if it is part of your win condition. I feel that this is very important. I see this in a lot of people's gameplay. They're like trying to pull off all these sac swaps just to try to get fancy, but at the end of the day, if all you're doing is switch locking your Pokemon over and over and over again, it's not actually that beneficial to you. So I would say only sac if it is part of your win condition. If you know that your Pokemon doesn't have enough health, or it's not going to be able to get to that charge move in time, then you can try to execute one of these sac swaps. All right. In my opinion, and of course, you know, people can have their own views on this as well, there's like 3 main types of sacrificial swaps. The first one is based on your opponent's energy. The second type is based on your energy, and then the third type is just random, a random guess. So sac swapping based on your opponent's energy. Essentially what this means is that you are going to be keeping track of your opponent's energy, and right when they have enough energy to get to their charge move, this is most likely where you're going to execute the swap. In my opinion, these are the easiest to execute because the only factor you're really relying on is how much energy your opponent has. And so if you're able to very cleanly keep track of that, you know where to execute the swap. I found that this tends to work most consistently in high pressure situations. So what I mean by that, when your opponent's Pokemon has like minimal health, or they're really pressured to get that charge move off as quickly as possible, especially towards the end of the game, it's a lot easier to execute this swap because they're more likely to throw the energy right when they get it, because they really want to get that move off in order to not faint out or just take out your opponent, take out your Pokemon right there. I've also found that this works much more consistently against less experienced opponents because typically they tend to not overfarm and they just tend to throw right away. One of the downsides to this is that this is very predictable at high levels of battle. So top battlers are always going to be expecting a sac swap, and so it's very rare that they're going to throw right on the correct energy cost for the charge move. They're expecting the sac swap, so this is a little bit more difficult to execute at higher levels. So I'm going to start off by showcasing a very basic example of sac swapping based on your opponent's energy. And then we're going to get into some fairly advanced examples here very quickly. So in this first example, I have my Drifblim against Azumarill. I know that Drifblim is running Hex, Azumarill is running Bubble. They are both 3-turn moves, and I don't want to get hit by an Ice Beam from the Azumarill, so I'm going to swap to my own Azu right here to catch this Ice Beam. I know it takes 5 bubbles for the Azumarill to get to Ice Beam, and so that's how I was able to pull off that swap right there. My opponent did not overfarm at all. They threw right away, and so we can kind of watch this again from the top. Count to 5 bubbles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I click the swap button and I'm able to catch the Ice Beam on the Azumarill. This is very straightforward, nothing fancy here. I just wanted to showcase what this example looks like in its most basic form. This is like the most basic form of sacking based on your opponent's energy, able to catch the resisted Ice Beam on my Azumarill there. Now these next examples are a lot more advanced. In this first example, I have a Vigoroth against a Whiscash. I know that Whiscash takes 9 Mud Bombs to get to Blizzard or for back-to-back Mud Bombs. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay in this matchup, continue to play it out, count their fast moves, keep track of where my opponent is at on energy. And you will see one thing that I have found, that one technique you can do that entices your opponent to throw is by you throwing your own energy. So with my Vigoroth, I'm staying in here. We're charging up here. My opponent is at 5 mud shots right now. I'm going to throw this body slam, and then I'm going to continue to stay in here and farm up. I know that they're 4 away from back to back or their big move. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then actually catch on my Granbull here. And so I'm able to catch this charge move. That's an example right there where I pulled off a swap based on my opponent's energy of stacking either back-to-back moves or their big move of Blizzard, which takes 9 mud shots to get to. So I threw energy on that first charge move. I threw my charge move. I was making sure that they didn't get an extra mud shot through, keeping track of their energy, so I knew that my count was correct, and that way I was able to execute that swap onto the Granbull there. This next example is another one of me throwing energy to further convince my opponent that I'm going to try to stay in that matchup. And so again, this is going to be Vigoroth against a Pelipper. Pelipper takes 5 wing attacks to get to Weather Ball, or 10 wing attacks to get to the Hurricane, or stack back-to-back Weather Balls. I have a Lantern that I ideally want to catch a move on the Lantern because I know both Weather Ball and Hurricane is resisted. So we're going to see this Pelipper come in. It's fresh. It has no energy. I already have a body slam loaded though. And so what you're going to see me do is throw some energy onto this Pelipper because I'm trying to convince my opponent that I'm going to stay in here and not switch out. So we'll let this play out here. 2, 3, 4, 5. The Pelipper is at 5 wing attacks right now, and I'm at back-to-back body slams here. No extra wing attack went through. 6, 7. 1 extra wing attack goes through right there. So they are now at 7. Remember, it takes 10 to get to Hurricane or double Weather Ball. 8, 9, 10. I'm able to catch on my Lantern here regardless of what this move is. This is resisted damage, and so it's wasted energy for my opponent. And so I was able to once again keep track of their energy while I'm sitting here throwing charge moves, putting on the pressure onto my opponent to throw their energy, and I'm able to execute that swap onto the Lantern. Alright, this next example of sac swapping kind of transcends throughout the entire match. So I clip out the middle part of this match. I'm going to show the beginning and then show the end here. My lead is a Drifblim against a Rainy Cast Form. I know that it takes Rainy Cast Form 12 water guns to get to a Weather Ball, and Hex on Drifblim being the fast move is a 3-turn fast move, and so essentially for every 4 of my Hexes, my opponent is going to have a Weather Ball stored. So this is right at the beginning of the match. I don't stay in this matchup here because I'm trying to bait out a counter to my backline here, but it's important to take notes here. 1, 2, 3. Right there, right at the beginning of the matchup, my opponent does 3 water guns and then they store their Pokemon. So I know that that cast form has 3 water guns worth of energy. So now when I fast forward through the matchup here, right here, the cast form is going to come back in. And I know that it has 3 water guns of energy stored already. It's going to take essentially 3 more of my hexes for them to get to a move. So when it comes back in, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. I'm going to throw right here. And if this was a CMP tie, then I know that they're throwing right when they get it. So I land the Shadow Ball. And it was a CMP tie because I was not able to switch into my Ferrothorn. So now all I have to do here is count to 4 and attempt to catch a Weather Ball onto my Ferrothorn. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm able to catch on my Ferrothorn. Not only was I able to catch on my Ferrothorn there because I was keeping track of their energy, but their health was also very low, so they were almost in range of being taken out by an Icy Wind, so they were more enticed to throw immediately. So I'm able to catch this move onto my Ferrothorn, and this will be the resisted Weather Ball damage, which is really favorable for me, essentially wasted energy there. Alright, this next form of swapping is based on your energy. So this is essentially assuming that your opponent is keeping track of your energy. And so what this means is that you are going to execute a swap right as you are getting to the energy required to get to your charge move. So this is definitely more advanced and more high level stuff here. This is a lot riskier because in theory your opponent could throw their move anytime before you get to that amount of energy, but this is all like operating based under the assumption that your opponent is keeping track of your energy and they're going to throw their move right when you get to that amount of energy. This is most effective when your Pokemon would be the one that loses CMP, because most likely what's going to happen if your opponent knows that they will win CMP, they are going to farm up as much as possible and force that CMP tie, knowing that they're going to win it, and so they can have maximum energy and know that they are still going to get their move off. And so I have found that this is more effective against experienced battlers because your opponent is going to know how much energy you're going to have. They're going to know who wins CMP, and a lot of times they're going to force the CMP tie. So here's a very basic, clean-cut example of swapping based on your energy. So in the lead here, I have Hypno up against the Pelipper. I know that Pelipper is going to win CMP, and I know that Pelipper is also going to be threatened by my Thunder Punch. It's going to take 4 confusions to get to my Thunder Punch. Pelipper is going to have a Weather Ball stored way before then, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to pull off a swap right as I'm receiving the energy for the Thunder Punch. So there's 1 confusion, 2, 3, 4, and right here I'm going to swap into my Vigoroth. My opponent knows that Pelipper wins the CMP tie, and so they can farm all the way up to that first Thunder Punch and guarantee that they're going to be able to get off their move first. And so I'm able to pull off that swap right there and catch this energy on to the Vigoroth instead of the Hypno. So once again, we're going to get into some more advanced examples of this. In this particular example, my opponent has a Shadow Dragonite on the field. It already has a little bit of energy stored. I'm going to be bringing out my Ferrothorn here. Shields are down. And I know that my opponent is going to be keeping track of how much energy my Ferrothorn has, and they're going to try to not get hit by a Thunder from my Ferrothorn. I have not revealed the second move on my Ferrothorn quite yet, and so my opponent is most likely assuming that I am running Thunder, which will take 5 Bullet Seeds to get to. Dragonite wins CMP, so my opponent can farm all the way up to force that CMP tie, and so what I'm going to do is try to catch their move onto my minimal health lantern that is sitting in the back here. So I'm going to be swapping based on my own energy here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you can see right here, I don't have the Flash Cannon stored, but my opponent is assuming that I'm running Thunder. I'm at the correct energy for Thunder right now, and so I'm going to pull off the sack swap right onto my lantern, catch all this energy. It's a Hurricane, so that's a lot of wasted energy, and then this actually allowed me to win the match because I'm going to be able to take out that Dragonite in the back. But once again, swapping based on my energy because I know that my opponent is going to be keeping track of how much energy that I have. All right, this next example is a little tricky here. The situation is that I have my Swampert against the Skarmory. Skarmory already has some loaded energy. My Swampert already has a lot of loaded energy. But they are up in shields. They have 1 shield left. I don't have a shield remaining. And so what I'm going to try to do is catch a move onto my Vigoroth. I know that my Swampert wins CMP, and my opponent knows that as well. So what's going to happen here is that I know that my opponent is going to try to throw a move before I'm able to get enough energy to throw a Hydro Cannon. So I'm going to try to catch on my Vigoroth before then. I know that my opponent is keeping track of my energy, and they have to throw their move before I can get to my Hydro Cannon because I will win CMP. So once again, I'm throwing energy here to further convince them that I'm committed to staying into this matchup, but I'm going to try for the catch on this next move here. So right there, the reason that I'm able to execute the swap right there is because I was 1 mud shot away from getting to the Hydro Cannon, and they were going to be stuck in their air slash animation and not be able to queue up their charge attacks. So this essentially right here was the latest moment that they could have thrown their energy, because any later than that and I would have been able to execute a Hydro Cannon and take out their Skarmory. So kind of a more advanced example there, and again, this is all kind of just assuming what your opponent is going to do. Sometimes this works, sometimes it totally fails and it ends up costing you the game, but trying to implement these strategies really helps flip some of these matchups around. The final form of sack swapping I call the random swap. My tips for this: good luck. because it is sometimes just random. Sometimes you're just staying there, you overfarm, and you just kind of feel like your opponent is going to throw right there, and sometimes it works out. Just one more. This is like one strategy that I like to implement a lot, and a lot of top battlers implement as well. After you throw a charge move, you do one more fast move, again trying to convince your opponent that you're going to stay in there, and then you execute the swap. Sometimes this works out, sometimes it doesn't, but random swaps are fun. They're totally unpredictable, and when they work out, they are very exciting. So now that we've talked about how to execute different sacrificial swaps, I want to talk about how to prevent your opponent from executing one of these swaps, because it's always devastating when it happens to you. So first of all, you need to know your charge move timing and your fast move alignment. So if you have not checked out my video on this, make sure to check that out. I talk about all the different duration fast moves and where to kind of queue up your charge move to ensure that your opponent is not getting any free energy. It's the same sort of concept with preventing them from sac swapping. Essentially, if you throw your charge move in the middle of your opponent's fast move animation, this prevents them from being able to switch out because they're still stuck in that animation. So if you know your ratios of your fast moves, you'll know when you can throw in the middle of their animation to prevent them from switching out. If you're in a mirror match, or if you're in a situation where both you and your opponent have the same duration of fast move, you can do what I like to call like an intentional desync, which means essentially you're going to stop tapping for a split second, and that is going to allow your fast moves to get out of alignment, and then you can throw in the middle of their animation from here on out. But let's look at some examples here. So in this example, I actually have both perspectives up here. My phone is on the left, my wife's phone is in the middle. My wife is going to try to switch out of her Azumarill and catch a move. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to queue up my charge move in the middle of her bubble animation, and so she will not be able to get out of this matchup. So we can kind of see this play out here. So right there, she tries to switch after she has enough energy to throw the ice beam. Let's watch this again, and you can watch from her perspective here. Right as she's getting close to the ice beam energy, she tries to click on the Tropius right there. You can see she's clicking the Tropius, but she is still in the middle of her bubble animation, and this is right where I queue up the body slam. So now, if we watch this from my perspective, you can count how many counters I throw and see the alignment versus her fast moves there. So it's 2 against 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, and I queue it up right there, because as we know, if you've seen my fast move timing video, with the 2 against 3, you want to throw on right after alignment there, and so it aligns every 3 fast moves. And because I'm able to queue it up there, she's not able to switch out, and I'm able to execute this charge move without the Azumarill catching a move. So again, this is the case with all of these different fast move durations when they're not the same. Essentially, you just want to make sure that you're not throwing the charge move on the alignment point, because that gives them an opportunity to switch out. Here's another example of this. I'm using Registeel on the left there, so I have a 1-turn move of lock on, and then my wife is using Azumarill again, so 3-turn move of bubble, and it's going to be the same thing here. I'm going to queue up my charge move when she's in the middle of her bubble animation, so we can watch this play out. And right there, I'm going to throw my flash cannon right in the middle of her bubble animation, and even though she tries to click out of it, if I rewind, you can see right there, she gets enough energy for play rough, and then she's trying to click on the Tropius right here, but this is at the same point in time when I'm clicking on my flash cannon, and she is stuck in there, and I'm able to execute my flash cannon here and prevent the swap out. This is much easier when you have a like a much smaller duration fast move, like a 1-turn move, against a much longer duration fast move, like 3 or 4 turns. You have a lot more flexibility in there to be able to queue up the charge move in the middle of the animation to make sure that they don't swap out. Here's an example of the intentional desync. So we're going to be in a mirror match here, and what I'm going to do is actually intentionally stop tapping my phone. So again, I'm on the left here, and my wife is in the middle here. I'm going to intentionally stop tapping my phone to guarantee that she can't switch out. So we get to play rough right there. I stop tapping. You can see she gets a bubble through, and I'm tapping the play rough right in the middle of this animation. This obviously isn't like a super practical example right here, because in this scenario you would obviously just play out this Azumarill matchup, but this is just showcasing the mechanic here of intentionally creating that desync. I stop tapping, I queue up the play rough in the middle of it, and this guarantees that she's not able to switch out of that. One more example of this intentional desync here. This is going to be in the Vigoroth mirror match. So I'm going to stop tapping after my 5th counter and throw in the middle of the move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I stop tapping, and then I queue up the body slam right in the middle of the counter animation. Once again, this is just purely showcasing this this mechanic here. In reality, you would definitely just play this Vigoroth mirror out, but this like clearly shows that if you stop tapping for a split second and get your fast moves out of alignment, then you're able to throw in the middle of the fast move animation and prevent a sac swap. So I hope you all found this video helpful. Sac swapping takes a lot of practice and a lot of knowledge and really good execution to really make this stuff clean and feel comfortable. But if you appreciate this content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Best of luck out there with your battles, and I'll catch you all in the next video.